welcome, and we're glad that you're here today. My name is Steve, and I'm the church life pastor here at Glad Tidings. I'd like to welcome those worshiping with us online and those at our Aldershot site. We love you guys and are thankful you've joined us this morning. Well, today we're finishing our summer series. Throughout the summer, we've been looking at these I am statements that Jesus made in the book of John, and today is the last one, the seventh one in the Gospel of John that we'll look at. If you have your Bibles, you can turn with me to John chapter 15, and that's going to be our text this morning. Actually, we're looking at the text that was our weekly verse. John 15, verse 5 will be a focus point. But it's hard to believe that September is just around the corner. How many have enjoyed their summer so far? Right? All right, we have a few people that have enjoyed it. If those of you that have not enjoyed summer, you got 6 days left, so enjoy it while you can, because September is fastly approaching. And, we had great weather, right? Good summer, good weather, good opportunity to connect with family, friends. You know what? I don't know if you noticed, just in August, Maclean's Magazine voted Burlington as Canada's #1 city to live in, right? That was pretty cool. Yeah, we can thank God for that. We're not lucky, we're blessed, right? We're good. And so it's been awesome summer. And I just got back from some vacation and had a great time with my family. And while I was away, I had this thought. And, I have lots of thoughts, but not all of them are great thoughts, But this was a good thought. And let's put it up on the screen there. I'm going to quote myself. I don't know if that's actually a quote, if I'm actually saying it. But I had this thought. A small investment can have a big return. And God was just stirring that in my heart that, a small investment, in lieu of 52 weeks in a year, I was gone for 2 weeks and some time with my family, but some focus time, some time away to unplug. And I love what Mark Batterson says. He said, a change of pace, a change of place equals a change of perspective. And it's amazing what happens as we can pull away and as we can focus. And a small investment, and I want to say that small does not equate easy. In our culture, sometimes we want the easiest thing, the fastest thing, but a small might seem insignificant in the moment, but it can lead to a big return, a big impact. And you know what? In life, there are things that we can do that some things might start small and seem really not that significant, but with a little bit of time and a little bit of consistency can pay off. For example, like investing, right? You can start with a little bit, and a few years later, it's a little bit more, and after 10 years and 20 years, it's more and more. Like, for example, if I was to say to you, hey, I'll give you $1 million right now, one-time payment, or over 30 days, you can have a penny a day that will double every day. What would you choose? A penny a day. Thank you, David. A penny a day, because after 30 days of it doubling, it would be like $5.3 million, something that's small, that starts out small, that can actually have a big return. And likewise, in fitness, you think about health and fitness and something that everyone wants. We want to live a healthy life. We want to maximize our days. We want to live a life that is just fit and healthy and able to be all that God's created us to be. But sometimes in culture and in life, we're busy and there's so much bidding for our time and our attention, and there's only so much time in a day. And so we're like, okay, well, something gets squeezed out, and sometimes it's eating healthy that's squeezed out, and sometimes it's the gym that gets squeezed out. But the reality is that there's no silver bullet, there's no pill that just can make it happen. It takes time. It takes small things done daily that can pay off over time. I want to show you a picture. This is me in October on the left. My kids said I look like a chipmunk, but that was me, October 1, and then August 3rd, 2019, not 2018. I've lost 30 pounds in 10 months, if you can believe that. And, it's small things that done a little bit each day, right? It's not going crazy. Now, some would tell you too much too soon, you can get yourself hurt, and I might be able to tell you about that. I've done a little too much at different times, but it's small things done right each day can lead to an impact and lead to something big and significant in your life and in the lives of others. In our relationships, in our marriages, right? It's not, you don't just get married and then all of a sudden it's good. Pastor Kevin, you said that joke, hey, I told you I loved you the day I married you, and I'll let you know when it changes. Not like that, right? It's about living a life and every day making an investment, each and every day, small investments that lead to a rich, beautiful relationship. This September, only a few days away, I'm going to celebrate 18 years of marriage. I know I don't look that old to be married that long, but it's 18 years that's coming up. And, I've just been reflecting and saying, wow, daily investment that leads to a rich, deep relationship. Same thing with our kids and friends and all of those things. They don't just happen, right? It takes time and daily deposits, small deposits that over time can have a big impact in your life and in my life. You know, it's those moments that are really, really valuable. And today we're going to look at John 15. And in John 15, this is, as I said, one of the last I am statements in the book of John. And it's one that where Jesus is saying, I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me, you'll produce much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. And so as we've been going through this series looking at these I am statements of Jesus, Jesus issued these I am statements, and there were sometimes metaphors that would help us understand who Jesus is, because when we understand who Jesus is, then it helps us understand who I am. And when we understand who I am, we can be who God's created us to be, and we can do what God's wanted us and created us to do. And so that's the goal of our series this morning. And so reading John 15, verse 1 to 5. I am the true grapevine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit, and he prunes the branches that do bear fruit, so they will produce even more. You've already been pruned and purified by the message I've given you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it's severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. Yes, I am the vine, and you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. So Jesus was telling the disciples, he said, hey, here it is. Remain in me, and you're going to be multiply, you'll be fruitful, but apart from me, it's over. You're not going to do anything. He drops the truth bomb and mic drop, and that's it, and he moves on. And it's a very important conversation that's taking place. And what's interesting here, in 5 verses, 4 times, Jesus says, remain in me. Remain in me. Remain. This word in the Greek, it's the word meno, and it means to abide, to stay, to wait. And Jesus was like, hey, wait, take some time, abide. Spend time remaining in me, because that's when you're going to be able to produce fruit. That's when you're going to be fruitful. And you know, you might ask the question, well, what does it mean to remain? Like, what does that look like? Remaining is about having a regular relationship with Jesus, right? It's about continually following him. It's about continually pointing our compass in his direction and saying, my focus is you, Jesus. I want to live for you. I want to follow you. I want to be transformed by you. I want to know you. And it happens by reading our Bible. It happens by prayer. And it's some small things done each and every day that lead to big impact in our lives, that lead to big impact in others' lives as a result of Jesus transforming us and as a result of us remaining in him. You might ask, like, how can I tell if I'm remaining? How do I really know? Like, you know, I say I'm remaining, but am I really remaining? And it really looks like this. You produce fruit. You might wonder, like, well, what's this fruit Jesus is talking about? And the fruit is the fruit of the Spirit. In Galatians 5, it says you'll produce love, joy, peace, patience. How many like a little love in your life, right? A little bit of joy. It's okay to have some joy, right? A little bit of peace. Who would like some peace? A little patience. We could all use a little extra patience, right? You know, it's good fruit that God produces in our lives. And so the fruit of the Spirit is just something that's produced as we remain in him. And then also, you know what? You see that you grow in your love for God. Our mission statement is living for God and living for people. And as you are in relationship, as you're remaining in him, your love for God just grows and your love for people grows. Because how many know, like, when we are living for ourselves, it's pretty easy to just think of me, myself, and I, right? But as we remain in him, God starts to lift our focus off of what's going on in our world to seeing the world that he's called us to. The world that has opportunity to love like Jesus loves, to give like Jesus gives, to serve like Jesus serves. And so God gives us those opportunities when we remain in him. We start to see it. And you know, it says in John 15, verse 10, actually John 15, verse 7, it says, you'll see prayers answered. Like, God actually, as we remain in him, we start to see God working in new ways. And our heart is in alignment with his heart. We're praying his prayers, and we're seeing answer to prayer, and we're also seeing that we experience joy. And John 15:11 says that I've told you these things that you'll be filled with joy. Yes, you will overflow with joy. And so these are some ways that we can tell this is what it means to remain. And this is how you know you're remaining in him. And a little bit of background to the text this morning is interesting. John 15 is where we're reading, and John 13 is the Last Supper. And the Last Supper was Jesus's Last Supper, right? Like, he's with his disciples, and they're all gathered around, and Jesus soon would be arrested, and would be crucified. And so here what we have in John 15 is like the dinner conversation around the table, like something that Jesus is saying that's really important. Like, this is the last time I'm going to talk to you, so this is something that I don't want you to forget. And that's the context of what we're reading this morning. So Jesus was saying, hey, remain in me and I in you, and you will produce much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. And so it's really important. We need to get it that Jesus wants us to remain in him. And the result is this, is that he gives us a command. He says, if you will remain, you will be fruitful, you will multiply, and you will have fruit. But if you don't, it's going to be hard to really do anything. And so we have a responsibility to obey his command in our lives. And so that's what we want to look at this morning. There's a couple of observations that I have from this passage that I wanted to share with us. The first one is this, is that we remain in him for our benefit. You know, John verse 4, it says, remain in me and I will remain in you. How many are thankful this morning that Jesus gives us a promise he'll remain in us, right? It's pretty good to have Jesus with us. His wisdom, his strength, his peace, his presence. There's so many times in this life that it's so thankful that I'm not going through life alone, that I know that he's with me. He guides me. He comforts me. He strengthens me. And so we have this promise that it's for our benefit. And I love that as we tap into the vine, we're the branch, right? That's the metaphor. He is the vine, we're the branch. A branch can do nothing on its own. It's useless. It can't grow fruit on its own. It's not planted in soil. It's just there. But when it gets tapped in, it has incredible potential to be fruit-bearing. And that's what our life can be. When we get tapped into Jesus, we produce fruit, and our lives are different. And I love the benefit that we have through knowing Jesus. Psalm 103 says this, it says, forget not all his benefits, for he heals all your sickness, he cleanses and forgives all your sins, and he removes your sin as far as the east is from the west. And there's incredible benefit that you have as you plug in, as you remain in him. I love this. You know what? Our battery is charged when we remain in him. I discovered that I'm a heavy user on my cell phone. I have a screen time app, and it every now and then will give me a screen time report. And anyone else have the screen time report? Maybe you don't need it. But I get these notifications that tell me how much time I've been on my phone each day. And but my battery doesn't last, right? I need a portable battery pack sometimes to charge, because I can't make it from like the morning charge till nighttime to get home. Like, I've been driving and my phone's died and I don't have a GPS and I don't know where I'm going anymore because I rely on Waze to tell me where to go, right? And, so I need to charge. And I realize the importance of having a backup battery. And Jesus becomes a charging point for your life and mine. As you and I remain in him, I love it. Isaiah 40 verse 31 says that, but those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. As you and I remain in him, it's plugging in and it's charging. It's refreshing. It's restoring. It's renewing. It's reviving as you spend time in God's presence. Remaining in him is so important, not just for us, but also for others. You see, we produce fruit, and the real result is this, is that the fruit that you produce isn't just for you. Like the love and the joy, the peace, the patience, the kindness, self-control, all of that is good, but it's not just intended for you. It's intended to create for others in your family, in your workplace, in your community, wherever you live, whatever you do, that you would produce fruit that others would see, that others could taste. And that brings me to the second observation, is that we remain not only for our benefit, but for the benefit of others. See, because the result is this, is as you and I remain in him, our lives are transformed, we are recharged, we are renewed. And it's so easy when we're on our own, we can just do our own thing and go our own way and become selfish. But as we spend time in him, he increases his presence and his voice and his leadership and his guidance, and our own ways decrease. And then and only then can we actually be the instruments that he's wanting us to be, that we would demonstrate his love, that we demonstrate his grace to the people that he's placed around us. See, Jesus said that I want you to love one another as I have loved you. And this is interesting because Jesus doesn't go and say, hey, just love one another, because that's a pretty subjective command. Because love one another, well, what I think is love and what you think is love and what they think is love could all be very different. But Jesus is like, love one another as I have loved you. And Jesus shows us the example that to love means to sacrifice, to lay down your life for another. And That is what love means. It's a sacrificial, it's a serving, it's a giving, it's a going, and Jesus wants us to love that way. But how many know that on our own it's pretty difficult, near impossible to love like that unless we're tapped into him. As we remain in him and him in us, then he gives us the ability to love in a way that serves, to love in a way that sacrifices, to love and sees the need, that we have eyes that are his eyes, hands that are his hands, that we move to his rhythm in our lives day to day, moment to moment. I love what he said in John 15, verse 10. When you obey my commandments, you remain in my love, just as I obey my Father's commandments and remain in his love. And see, the key here this morning and the application to this is we remain for our benefit. We remain for the benefit of others. And then we remain because as we take a step of obedience, our responsibility is to obey. We don't do, God says, if you will draw near to me, I will draw near to you. As you take a step and as he says, remain in me, he's instructed, he's commanded. As we remain, we obey. As we lean into his presence, then he does the work. It's not up to us as a branch to do the work. We tap in, and then we allow him to work in our lives. As we tap in, we take a step of obedience. A step of obedience is a powerful tool that can unlock a door in your life and in my life. Think about this. When I was in Brazil just a couple of weeks ago, Pastor Isaiah's wife, Nicole, she was with us, and she said this to our team in one of our team discussions. She said this, you never know who or what is waiting on the other side of your obedience. You never know who or what is waiting on the other side of your obedience. Because as a result of taking a step of obedience, there is a key that goes in a door that can unlock, and you can see healing. You can see hope. You can see life change. You can see transformation. You can see all kinds of things that you never knew were possible as a result of your obedience. As you listen to God, what is God asking you today? What is God gently knocking on your door and saying, hey, I want you to do this. I've been asking you to do this. Will you do this? And so many times in our lives, we're like, yeah, God, I'm too busy. I don't know. I've got too much on the go. I really know you want me to love everyone as you've loved me, but I don't know if I can love that person. Right? We're just like, it's just so many things that God is asking us, but who or what is standing on the other side of our obedience, you don't know until you take a step. It might seem like something small, but something small can lead to something big if you'll take a step of faith and obedience and see what God will do. As I said, I was in Brazil for 2 weeks with our missions team from the church. We had a team of 20, and you'll see the team up here, and it was an intergenerational team. That's a selfie if you didn't know. I'm kind of half in the picture. But, intergenerational, intercultural team. And we say often around here that we family. And I learned while I was on this trip that the statement of we family is more than just a statement or slogan. It actually is something that it's a tangible expression of the family of God that I didn't know that that's what we brought. As I've been going on these missionary trips with this church in Peru, I was wondering, what do we bring? Who are we, and what's our purpose, and what do we contribute to this mission? And I've become keenly aware that God was just helping me understand, and we were seeing that who we are as a church, we bring the love of God in a really unique and a really transforming, powerful way. And I was like, wow, that's really neat. And I heard that many times while we were in Brazil from different people, from people in the church and people in the community, and they were just moved by the love of God that was coming from these crazy Canadians. And, so we had this time, and I loved how our team understood from the beginning that we want, before God works through us, we wanted him to work in us. And we just took time to pray as a team, and I was so amazed and so inspired by our family, the people in our family that just intergenerationally, kids that are in high school and people that had just retired and all coming together and all with the common goal of just saying, God, we want you to work in us. We want to be transformed. We want you to work through us. And we just saw God work in some really incredible ways. I met some incredible people, and two of them that I met were these two pastors. One was Dino and Bruno. And they were just really incredible guys that just loved God and were just seeing God work in crazy, crazy ways. This Dino, his picture might come up on the screen there. He's beside me. And he's 27 years old, and he's leading a church. Actually, there's a network of 5 churches that he leads. And there's 5,000 people in his 5 churches combined. and he's 27. And I was just amazed at seeing the impact that they're having in and through Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo is 12 million people. It's a really large city, and God is doing some incredible things. Dino has a network of pastors that he works with and he leads, and 250 millennial pastors. They're all lead pastors, and collectively, between 250 of them, they represent 500,000 people in all of their churches combined. God is doing some incredible things, and the guy on the left is Bruno, and he was my first Brazilian friend. I met him through Instagram, and he's at Dino's church, and he speaks English, and so we were like chatting for a few months before I got there, and his English was really good, so we were fast friends and chatting really well, and so he just marked my life. He inspired me. His faith was just, you see people in a public setting, and then you see them in a private setting, and you realize that they're both the same in both locations. It's really inspiring, and you're like, wow, God, you're so good. You're doing some incredible things. And Bruno, I was on the bus with him one day. We were just talking, and as I was watching, we were listening to this conversation, and all of a sudden his phone just started ringing. It was an alarm. And I was like, okay. And mid-sentence, he stops. He goes, excuse me. He goes, Colossians 1:15 says, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, what was that? And he goes, oh, that's the verse of the day. I have 5 alarms on my phone, and 5 times throughout the day, wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, I stop and I recite the verse of the day. He's memorizing the word, and I was just like so inspired by him. And these guys that were just ordinary people like you and me, that God is doing some incredible things in their lives and through their lives as they take small steps of obedience. Who knows who or what is waiting on the other side of your obedience as you take a step of obedience? What is God asking you to do today? You know what? As I think of steps of obedience in the Bible, I look at David and Goliath. Right? David, a shepherd boy, not really ready for battle, not old enough for battle, but you know what? No one else was taking down the giant, so he's like, hey, I've been trained in the field, and I know how to throw the sling here. I'm going, and he picks up 5 stones, and he only needs one, and one step of obedience and victory that comes. I think of Esther and the queen and her uncle that says, hey, you know what if God's put you in this position for such a time as this? And she goes before the king, and her people are spared, and takes a step of obedience. The step of obedience is a powerful thing that we only discover as we point our compass in the direction of Jesus and say, God, I want to remain in you. I want to produce fruit. I want to be who you've called me to be. I want to be all that I can be. And that happens as you take these steps. Our lives are transformed and we're changed in his presence. And, while we were there, I'll just show that group photo if we can. We did a lot of community ministry, and we were doing stuff in the parks. And it's hard to say downtown because in a city of 12 million, like really the downtown is massive. And so we were in a business district and meeting with all kinds of people. And we were in a very dangerous area. We were told that, don't bring backpacks and don't have wallets and don't have your cell phones out and don't have any bling. Like it's really... Even though it's daytime, you could get stuff stolen. And so we were kind of ready, and we were down there doing some ministry. And while we were there, this is our team that was there from Brazil, Peru, and Canada. And we were just doing ministry, and it was really incredible. And we just saw God work in powerful ways. And our team, we did drama and flash mobs and just engaging with people at different times and different places. And we saw people come to know Jesus. And through this expo that we did, it was really about connecting people with God's love. It's about connecting people with God's plan, and it was really clear that God had a plan and God had purpose, and it talked about purity and sexuality and all kinds of things. And so in the messaging, somehow the media, they took it and they ran with it, and it kind of it got distorted a bit, and they printed it, and it was just like these 2 churches, they named them and said, hey, they're kind of narrow-minded and all this stuff. So on our 3rd day of ministry, we show up, and there's a bit of a protest there. There are people that are there, and they're gathered, and they got flags, and they're ready to let us know that, hey, we don't agree with you, and you just are opinionated, and you're judgmental, and you don't know really what's going on. You don't know me. And so we knew that this was happening, and I have to tell you that you could cut the tension with a knife. It was really thick, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And we had been told by our team that we were supposed to just go and pray and don't engage. The leaders were going to just talk with some of the people that were there that were rallying, ready to protest and argue. And some prayer was taking place. And there's a photo there of the ladies in the kitchen, and they were cooking us up food every day at our accommodations, and they were more than just cooks. They were intercessors. And I walked in on them on the morning of this controversy that we had, and this is what I see. They were interceding. And they didn't know what was coming. They didn't know what that day had, but they were preparing, and they were taking steps of obedience. And sometimes I think that obstacles become opportunities in God's hands. And what seemed like an obstacle for us, and at first they were like, do we even continue with the expo today? There's going to be controversy. We don't know what's going to happen. Pastor Dino, Pastor Fernando, they took a step, and they said, you know what? God's brought us here. He's opened up the door. We're going to engage. We're going to see what kind of opportunities we can have. We're going to demonstrate the love of Jesus. We're going to extend grace and mercy, and we'll just see what happens. And so that's what happened. And as a result of prayer, as a result of steps of obedience, there was a conversation that took place. And Pastor Kevin has said before that, you know what, listening is so close to loving, it's hard to tell the difference. And we just watched as the leaders were just engaging in conversation, and they were listening. And the people that were there, they were upset, and they were thinking, you're judgmental, you're opinionated, you have your own agenda. They started to be heard, and they realized that they were met with love and not judgment. They were met with grace and mercy. And what was tense and what was actually quite nerve-wracking became peaceful, and it dissipated. It was amazing to see. And people that were waving flags, the flag stopped, and people just kind of started to mingle, and they started to talk, and it was amazing. It was like, what's going on? Well, one of the conversations that took place is one of the people that was leading the little protest. They came and they asked my friend, Pastor Marcus. They said, hey, Marcus, Pastor, can you pray for me? And Marcus said, sure, yeah, what can I pray about? And this guy said, you know what, my life is a mess. That's Pastor Marcus and his wife Renata. And they just said, you know, the guy's like, my life is a mess. It's broken. I'm sick. I have AIDS, and I don't know how long I have to live, but I just wondered if you could pray for me. And what seemed like an obstacle became an opportunity to extend the love and the grace of God. There was a step of obedience, and we didn't know who or what was waiting, but this gentleman was waiting on the other side of our team's obedience. Pastor Marcus, in that moment, extended his arms, and he hugged this guy, and he said, you know what? I don't know what your life has been like. I don't know what you've done. I don't know where you've been, but I know that Jesus loves you, and Jesus has a plan for you, and Jesus cares for you, and Jesus wants to work in your life. And there in that park, this man began to cry, and the tears flowed down his face, and Pastor Marcus just embraced him and hugged him and showed him the love of Jesus. That happens as a result of remaining in him. He is the vine, and we are the branches. When you remain in me and I in you, you will produce much fruit, but apart from me, you can do nothing. So this morning, I want to encourage us today. Would we be a people that choose to remain in him? Would we be a people that say, God, I'm going to keep my eyes focused on you. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to be who you've called me to be, not only for me, not only for my benefit, but for the benefit of others. For those in my family, those in my neighborhood, those in my workplace, that others would see the transformation in me. I'm going to ask you to bow your heads and close your eyes. And as we've been talking about this theme of remaining in him, the reality is this, is that there are many things that God is wanting to do in our lives. God has a plan and a purpose. And today, as you're here today, I really believe that God is wanting to inspire all of us to steps of obedience. He said, if you'll draw near to me, I will draw near to you. And what is the step of obedience that God is asking you to take? Maybe you're here today and you have never had a relationship with Jesus. Or maybe you're here and you had a relationship at one time, but today you want to just start, you want to restart. You want to choose to just say, hey, you know what, I want to take a step and walk closer to you, Jesus. And you know what, as you take a step, he says, I will draw near to you. Following Jesus isn't about what we can do, it's about what he's done. And as we just point our compass towards Jesus, he embraces us. He brings us healing. He brings us forgiveness. He brings us hope. And so this morning, if you're here and you want to take a step towards Jesus today, you want to start a relationship with him, heads are bowed and eyes are closed. And in this moment, I would just ask you to raise your hand, and I would love to pray for you today. Anyone that wants to take a step to start a relationship with Jesus. Thank you. Or maybe you're here today and you would say, you know what, I've been trying my best. Maybe you've been trying to remain in Him. You've been doing what you can do, but the result is life sometimes happens. And today you want to take a small step. You want to take a step of obedience, and God is asking you, you're just saying, would you pray for me that I would listen and respond? That I could take a step of obedience, that I could do what God wants me to do, that I could be who He wants me to be. That I want to fully understand who Jesus is so I can know who I am. If that's you today, you say, would you pray for me that God will help me today? Just take those steps of obedience, that I would see the opportunity because I don't know. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So Jesus, we thank you today for your love. We thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercy. And God, today for every person that has said, you know what, I want to start a relationship with you, Jesus. I pray that your word says that anyone who comes to you becomes a new creation. The old is gone and the new is coming. So God, today, I ask that you would just transform, that you would heal, that you would restore. God, as we take a step towards you, God, I thank you that we are met with an embrace, with a hug, with your love, that we are met with love and Lord, your goodness. And so, Father, today, I thank you for what you're doing in each and every heart. And God, for those of us that are just saying, God, we want to take steps of obedience. God, I thank you that on the other side of our obedience is incredible opportunity, is incredible life change, is healing and forgiveness and new life. And God, today as we take those steps, God, would you help us? And God, in the midst of seeing obstacles, would we not be discouraged? Would we keep our eyes up and looking on you? And God, as a result of taking those steps, we will see you work and do what you wanted to do in us and through us for your glory and your honor.